Once again, I'm Steve Mesple here at Wildwood with
Hey,
Johnny
Steve.
A. Just love hanging out with this
folks.
guy and hearing him play. I was hoping you could share with our listeners just how you got involved with music. What was your path that took you to where you are today? I know that's a long journey,
Yeah.
but
Especially when I just celebrated a birthday.
there you go. But it's been a great journey. But how did you first get excited about music or the guitar and the guitar?
Well, I always had music around the house. My dad was a big jazz guy and listened to Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman, and my mom always liked the music of the day, especially blues. And there was always music in the house. And the first thing that I remember is my mom had bought me, they would call them Victrolas back then, all record players. And I can remember it was it was white with a red top. And I had this two singles she gave me. And one was Fever by Little Willie John. And the other one was Harlem Nocturne by Earl Bostic Orchestra on King Records. It was a blue label with silver and the king and the crown and the whole thing. And she said I would just sit there and spin these things over and over and over and over. And my grandfather, I come from Greek ethnicity, and my grandfather had a bouzouki, which is, if people don't know, it's a 10-string instrument, and it's got kind of a gourd-shaped back, like a melon-shaped thing, very long neck. I just used to mess around with it, didn't know what I was doing. And on Saturdays, my grandmother and grandfather owned a luncheonette in Medford, Massachusetts called the Brown and Blue. My mom worked there on Saturdays, and this was in 1957, 8, 9 maybe. So I was young, I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and I have to go to work with my mom, and they would put me at the counter. It was a luncheonette, and in those days you'd have the little jukeboxes like every 3 stools, and you'd fill it, and they just give me a bunch of change, and you know, I'd put in the money, and I'd be listening to music all day. It'd be Kathy's Clown, it would be Buddy Holly, Peggy Sue, it would be Elvis Presley, it would be Ricky Nelson, it would be kind of, you know, probably some Ventures stuff on there, but just the music of the day, and they just feed me coins, and I just listened to that stuff. And I wanted to take drum lessons. So my mom, who has always been super, super supportive of my music. I mean, my mother was never one of these people that said, well, music could be good for a sideline, but you got to get a real job, Johnny. My mother was never like that. She just let me do what I wanted to do from a musical standpoint. So I took drum lessons, and I would be listening to people like Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich, and Sandy Nelson was one of the day, Teen Beat album by Sandy Nelson. And I enjoyed drums. I took lessons. I was okay, could play grooves, but wasn't really a natural thing for me. I think if I had continued playing drums, I wouldn't have ever been a natural drummer, you know. But then, you know, the big change was the British invasion, and the Beatles came over, and I remember hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on the radio, and it was just a sound that was ridiculous. The sound of their voices and the instruments and just the energy and the excitement that it had, and I was frustrated that I always had melody in my head, a lot of melody. And drums, it's a percussive instrument. It's not very melodic, I guess, unless you're Terry Bozzio. But so I wanted to switch. So I switched to guitar. I was playing in bands as a drummer, and I tried to get the guy that played guitar in the band to teach me, but he never would teach me. And one day my mom bought me a guitar from Lafayette Electronics, which is like a Radio Shack. Okay. It was a $49 guitar with an amp, and brought it home. I didn't even, you know, the action this far up, like I didn't even know how to tune it. I was tuning it do, re, mi. I had no idea. So a friend of mine came over and showed me how to tune the guitar, and I just took it upon myself to learn. And in the beginning, I would just be playing all these I didn't know any chords. Couldn't play a chord. Didn't know what a chord was. I'd just be playing melodies on a single string. And then my parents had these friends, and their son-in-law played in a band called the Improper Bostonians. And they were a big band around Boston. And he'd come over, and one day it was like an epiphany. They said to me, Johnny, why do you only play all the notes on one string? And I'm like, oh, there's 5 other ones. So then I started to figure out, oh, well, this note's here on this string, and it's also here up here. So I kind of did that myself, started to teach myself chords as much as I could. Always had problems with the F chord, barring the 2. You know, I had very small hands, if you didn't notice. But then, when I was about 12, I developed scoliosis, which, if people don't know, is a curvature of the spine. Your muscles develop at different rates on both sides of your spine, so it bends the spine. And I had to go into a full-body cast when I was about 12, which was having like a turtleneck sweater like this, all the way down below my pelvis. I was in that for about 14 months, and then a full-body brace for 2 years after that. And that's really when I learned how to play guitar. And in a way, you know, it's funny how sometimes obstacles end up being, they help you.
Opportunities.
And, opportunities are, and when you're a kid, you don't kind of realize the obstacles, and you're so resilient to things, you don't realize it as being tough. But I learned, a lot of people come up to me and say, how do you play guitar? You always have your eyes closed, you don't see. Well, when I played guitar, if you can imagine having a guitar in your lap or standing and having this cast on you like this, you can't see the neck. I couldn't see the neck. I mean, I couldn't move my head, so it was whatever peripheral vision I could get. I couldn't look down, you know, because my neck was like, literally like this. So I can't see my left hand right now. I couldn't see down. So that's how I developed. I didn't take any guitar lessons. I was self-taught. And I just found that, for some reason, it kind of just came to me. You know, some ways I wished I did study. I might have missed something, but then I might have not grown at the rate that I did, the way I did, had I did study. So you never know. Everybody has a path that they have to go on to kind of get to where they need to go.
Well, I think guys our age, the guitar was a mystery to us all. There wasn't, I mean, the guitar books that were available would teach you to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and Home on the Range, but we were all on this grand search to try to find out the secrets, somebody who could unlock the doors to us, and we had to do it ourselves, sometimes by just listening to records. Well,
that was all that you had for a teacher were the records.
Exactly.
But, you know, you had the ability to kind of stop the speed and then kind of play it slow, so you could hear the notes go by slower, and it was just so exciting because you didn't really, once the 60s started coming and all those bands, Hollies, Stones, Beatles, Animals, Kinks, with all this fantastic harmony. And these songs that were like 2.5-minute songs that were these complete, you know, stories. Excuse me, in 2.5 minutes. It was amazing. I mean, the amount of talent and the amount of work that came out in that, you know, 63 to 67 period, and all the acts and the songs, and it was amazing. Amazing time to grow up and listen to music. So that was an education.
So what was your first good guitar?
Okay, my first good guitar, I told you about the Vox. I don't know how old, I don't even know how old I was then. I must have been around 12 or something like that. And my aunt owned a beauty salon called the Continental in Medford Square, Massachusetts. And again, on Saturdays, I would go in and I would sweep all the hair. And she would give me $5 for sweeping all day long. And in the middle of town, there was a music store. And I would walk down, and they had this white Vox Clubman in the window.
I remember those,
And it was basically like a student, it's not like what you remember Vox as being. It had a funny headstock that kind of looked like a can opener, 6 on a side. It was white with a white-black pickguard, you know, lid pickguard, and 2 pickups that looked like tele pickups. And very student model, very small body, and that was my first guitar. I bought it myself, $88. And that was what I guess I considered the first good guitar. And then my mom, my next really good guitar, let me think about this. I think I had a Hagstrom 3. But my mom surprised me one day, 1968. I came home from school and walked into the kitchen. Right on the floor was, you know, the elusive black Tolex Fender case with the black rings on the side,
Yeah.
with the Fender logo on the thing, and I opened it up, and it was a '68 Paisley Telly that she had got me brand new. And then my dad had bought me a 60, and I told you I still have that one, the '67 Gretsch Viking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said I had a Hagstrom 3, and the first guitar that I kind of bought on my own that was a good guitar is when I decided I made the commitment to not play drums anymore and just try to be a guitarist. And that's when I took my Gretsch drums into the big music store in Boston at the time, which was EU Wurlitzer, kind of legendary store.
Mm-hmm.
And traded my Champagne Sparkle 63 Gretches in for a 69 Gibson Les Paul Gold Top, which Les has finally signed for me in the 80s.
Wow, that's great. So is that your main guitar for quite a few years?
It was. I mean, I really pretty much have played everything. I had a '57 Les Paul Special, the TV finish. Mm-hmm. I had a '67 Gibson double neck that was a leftover body with the long throw from the tailpiece to the bridge.
Yeah.
I had a '57 175. What else did I've had BC Riches, I've had Jacksons, I've had Paul Reed Smiths, I've had Fenders, I've had all kinds of things, and I just keep coming back to what I think is the greatest guitar company in the world, which is Gibson. I mean, there's a lot of guitar companies, and a lot of these guys make great guitars, but there isn't a guitar company that makes as many great guitars for as many categories. Like you look at Gibson, you look at the breadth of their line, and they make a guitar that's a jazz guitar, you know, floating pickups,
great flat
bluegrass,
tops.
you know, acoustics, mandolins, banjos, lap steels, solid bodies, semi-hollows, hollows. I mean, arch top electrics, jazz boxes, and you know, I just don't think there's a company. I mean, I'm lucky to be involved with a company like that.
So what's it like to have a guitar with your name on it? Not a lot of people have gotten to experience that with Gibson. So
no, I know, and I think, you know, I think I told you earlier that it was a kind of a scary thing, because from my standpoint, I don't really take that kind of stuff too lightly. And when I look at the heritage of the giants that have their names on a Gibson guitar, and we talked about them, you know, Wes Montgomery and, you know, Pat Martino, who was a big influence of mine, and you know, Chet, Les, you know, Johnny Smith, Charlie Christian. I mean, incredible real giants of the instrument. So that's kind of a humbling, scary thing. That's on the scary side of it.
Tell
on
me
the good
side
I mean, it's like,
come on.
It doesn't suck, folks.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, what are you gonna? What can you say? I mean, it's like. Because from my standpoint, I'm associated with what I consider the greatest guitar company in the world. You know, they've been around so long, and the instruments are iconic. I mean, in all kinds of fields. A Les Paul is an iconic guitar. Johnny Winter playing a Firebird, iconic. Wes Montgomery playing an L5, iconic. Joe Pass playing a 175, iconic. Johnny Smith, you know, they're just. Chet Atkins, Les Paul. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. So to be associated and have your name on the end of a headstock like that, it's mind blowing.
It is. The great thing is your music and the guitar are touching a lot of people, maybe in the same way you're touched by those people too. So kudos to you. Kudos for the great music, the involvement with Gibson.
Yeah, thank you.
Come see us again.
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay.